David Anthony. Thanks for checking out MotoAmerica on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and comment.
It's time for the MotoAmerica AMA/FIM North American Road Race Championship. It's the MotoAmerica Superbikes at Virginia. Our third round of 10 for 2022 from VIRginia International Raceway in Alton. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Supersport Show. I'm Greg White, standing alongside Jason Pridmore, two-time national champion. And Jason, we saw an unbelievable race one in Supersport from VIR yesterday, and it was, how do we say it, racing legend? Elder statesman, 47-year-old Josh Hayes won the race.
Experience, right?
Experience.
And if you watch that race, I spoke to him this morning. He says, Jay, I was sitting back in 5th place. Wasn't really sure how this whole thing was going to play out, but you could see he made an abundance of passes in different spots. He slides up underneath Rocco Landers there in that turn 4 spot, gets past Ty Scott up in turn 10, and then he was able to go past Josh Herron down into turn 1. And from this point on, it was experience that took over. He was able to get himself down into the 27s to catch that group, to lead that group. And you can see, Greg, by the end of the lap there, by the end of the last lap, he had about almost a second lead to win his 84th race of his career.
Looking at this, he's got 84 total wins in his career, 86 being the benchmark for Miguel Duhamel. 7 Supersport wins in his last full season was back in 2017. And guess what? We get to talk to him on the grid as Jamie Howe's with him right now. Good afternoon, Jamie.
Good afternoon, Greg. And for Josh Hayes, there's been over 5 years that's passed since he was able to get the last win, but you came out, you said you worked hard for this. You were able to not only race with a lot of young riders, but beat them. What did you prove yesterday?
I don't know, man. I just rode as hard as I could. I feel so thankful to this team, to Squid Hunter Racing, for giving me an opportunity to be a racer again, you know, and I'm very, very motivated to do a good job for these guys and show them, you know, I told them at Daytona I thought this bike was a winner, and I'm glad I was able to show it yesterday.
It was certainly a good show. Another motivated rider is Sam Lockoff, and he's up with Hannah Lopa.
Jamie, he is motivated. He's been making steady progress on the 750 all season long so far until an unfortunate get-off in yesterday's race. I'm sure he's out looking for redemption. Sam, how are you hoping this plays out a little differently today?
Honestly, if I can last a couple more corners, I'll be extremely happy, because I was in 5th. I got pushed off the track. I got dropped back down to 5th, and then got on my way up all the way to 2nd on the last lap. Unfortunately, I crashed. So if we can do what I did yesterday, but for maybe 7 more corners, I'll be extremely happy.
Sounds like a great plan for Sam Lockoff, guys.
Yeah, it certainly does, and it was a very uncharacteristic get-off for Sam Lockoff. Let's take a look at the track map. Jason Pridmore, built in 1957. Somebody just driving through the woods and created this amazing road race course.
Yep, and they're going to be getting pushed down that front straightaway there, Greg, by a little bit of a tailwind, it looks like, into turn 1. So we'll be watching that through turn 3, 4, 5. We've seen a lot of little tip-offs in turn 4 this weekend, through the S's up to turn 7. Then we go up a big steep hill, crossed a ridge, I guess you could say, down up to turn 10, and then it's all downhill from there until you get a slight uphill back to the start-finish line.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are just 6 minutes away from the race start. What can this 16-year-old do? Tyler Scott looking for his first Supersport win.
And Roger Hayden, I'm Robbie Floyd. After Tyler Scott got 0 points when he threw it away in Atlanta, race number 1, he comes back with a 5th place finish. Then we see him followed up with a 2nd place finish yesterday. He needs to start building off that. You can't do anything about Atlanta except for learn from it, and you said that even then.
Yeah, and also I think yesterday he had to learn a lot. I mean, to run with these leaders the whole race has to give him a lot of confidence. He made that mistake out of the last corner, and I think he'll learn from that whenever that, you know, toward the end of the race. Being a long race on these bikes, you know, he's coming from Junior Cup where the tires don't fall off as much as it's going to fall off in Supersport, and that's something he's going to learn today, and, you know, get to race with guys like Josh Hayes, Josh Herron, Sam Lockoff, Rocco Landers. He had to learn so much, and today I think he'll be just as good or a little bit better.
Let's take a look back at some of the highlights and some of the things to talk about on what we saw. We saw some aggressive moves, some mistakes by some riders, some disappointment from others. We also saw Josh Herron with that typical strong start that we see out of him.
Yeah, even in Atlanta, he was getting really good starts, and he got a great start today. See Sam Lockoff there trying to work his way up into second. And then here, early in the race, 2 guys going for the spot. And one of them wanted to let off.
And at that point, you see Josh Hayes, he was done with following Rocco. We've been trying to get by him the whole time. But even right here, or in just a second, we're going to see Hayes go to the inside. I don't see anything wrong with that. Herron took exception to it. I mean, there was a move, and even Josh admitted, I might have came in there a tad bit too hot, but I mean, I don't know what else he could have done.
He just got in a little deep, and then here Josh makes a mistake, gets in deep, runs off track, and yeah, and then you see Tyler Scott still trying to make the move and trying to lead the race.
That surprised you out of him, and he makes that bobble there, and that eventually would cost him the race.
But here's where Sam Lockoff has his issue there on the last lap. He was trying to get himself in position to make a draft there at the line.
But at the stripe, you know, it was Josh Hayes. You saw Josh Herron up there disappointed with Josh Hayes. Rocco Landers is going to be in the mix. We'll talk about those two in just a second. Rocco Landers could be that one factor, too. Thought he felt something with the bike yesterday, kind of backed off a little bit when he did to try and make sure he was up there getting valuable points. But he seems like he could be one to beat today. But are we still looking at the battle between the two Joshes today?
Well, I think there's going to be more guys. And also Rocco Landers, I think or Tyler Scott and also Sam Lockoff proved yesterday that they're going to be in it. I think we're going to see a lot more aggressive out of this guy today.
Really? You're saying we're going to see him be more aggressive?
His lap times are going to be quicker than what he ran yesterday. I think he's going to be trying to get away, make the break, and not get in those messes he had yesterday.
I can only hear stories of years gone by and former teammates, the two Joshes and stuff, and I don't think things were always so rosy. Now they're back on the track going at it head-to-head, one trying to win a race, one trying to win history.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is sponsored by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series, and by Geico, where 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on your car or motorcycle insurance.
Welcome back to Virginia International Raceway here in Alton, Virginia, as we await the start of Supersport race number 2. The grid is clearing as riders are going to set off on their warm-up lap. And Jason, we're looking at our pole sitter, Josh Herron, and Josh told me that the team worked really hard last night to give him better front-end feel, and in the morning warm-up, it happened. So Josh Herron is on pole at a 26.7. Lockoff and Tyler Scott on the first row, Jay.
And then we got Rocco Landers, Josh Hayes, and Almeida starting there on row number 2. A little further back, Benjamin Smith, Diego Perez, Luke Power, who we were lucky enough to meet yesterday, Greg, all the way from Australia, Thermiotis, Lewin, and Nissany. They're on row 4. Nissany coming from a top 5 finish yesterday. Really nice work. Liam Grant, Soltis, West, LaRoche, Jones, and Austin Miller. They're in 18th. A little bit further back, we're at Zaragoza, McQuigg, C. Taylor, and Donde.
So a field of talented racers in MotoAmerica Supersport competition. And Jason, as we get this warm-up lap, let's talk a little bit about racecraft and warm-up lap. How important is it? I know a lot of people who are old school racers think, gee, I was out there doing warm-up laps when there was no tire warmers. How hard do you need to go? So what are you looking for in a warm-up lap right now?
You know, for me, I was always, on a day like today when there's plenty of heat in the track and your bikes are coming right off warmers. So you just want to get the last little bit of race jitters out of the way and start making a plan of what you can expect. You're starting to focus on your start, your thought process going to the line when you get there. And, these guys, most of the guys up in those front 3-4 rows know each other. So you're going to take some of that experience that you've gained by getting to know some of them and some of their tendencies, and you'll work that into the thought process as far as where you want to get yourself positioned down there for turn 1.
So as they make their way through the racetrack?
And this morning, Greg, you were talking about warm-up, and this morning it was a lot cooler. We had a big storm roll through this area last night, big thunderstorms, and when we got to the track this morning, pretty much all the warm-ups were done under cloudy conditions and quite a bit cooler. And that sun finally came out, and it got heated up pretty quick. So those warm-up times this morning were really quick in all of our classes.
Just a reminder on what our championship standings look like. It's Josh Herron, who's coming off of 2 wins. He's 18 points ahead of Rocco Landers and Sam Lockoff, just a point behind him. So a lot in play as Herrin looked like he had the potential to sweep the season. He was so fast at Road Atlanta, but a couple mistakes by Herrin in yesterday's race, and he was only able to score 13 points, but
still managed to pull away in the points, though. And I think the big winner yesterday, actually, after coming up off the deck, was Lockoff. He was able to get back up, finish 11th, and at least get some points towards his championship. So let's see how the run down to turn 1 goes. Turn 1 here is very tight, Greg, and you can see we kind of start at a little bit of an angle here at VIR. So you can see how pole sitter has his bike kind of angled down that straightaway.
Also, we have a big tailwind that we haven't seen, as big as it is, but 19 laps scheduled in Supersport race number 2. Revs are up, lights are off, we're going. Josh Herrin, did he get another jackrabbit start that he's been getting all season long? Not quite as great as it's been, as Tyler Scott also right there. So Herrin leads the way into turn number 1 as things starting to tighten up at the exit of turn 2. But it is that Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York Panigale V2 of Josh Herrin who leads the field.
Over Ty Scott, and you can see Hayes got a good jump there from the second row. He got in front of Lockoff. It looks like we have Diego Perez running in 5th right now, so nice start from him. Rocco didn't quite get the start that he got yesterday, and he's been shuffled back to 6th with Almeida just behind him is wearing the 5A, 5B. You can see this group of 3 guys at the front trying to get away early. So I'm sure the intensity level is going to go up a little bit more today, especially between these 3 that we saw from yesterday, because yesterday Hayes was rolling around in 5th place at this stage, and they're already starting to make a pretty distinct breakaway. These first laps, Greg, are so pivotal and so crucial. We've seen it so much from Jake Gagne over the last year and a half here, where those starts, you get out to a quick start and try to get yourself some separation.
Ty Scott, the talk of the town, on the number 70 on that Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki GSXR 750. So it's a next-gen bike, this Ducati Panigale V2 and the GSXR 750 modified with throttle-by-wire. So these next-gen bikes being able to be controlled by the rules package for equaling out the playing field. And, of course, that R6. Here goes the first pass for the lead. And it's Ty Scott who's deep into turn number 1. There's no way can he hold on to it. He goes a little wide. He turns it back in. That's unbelievable. He was so deep in there. Being pushed by that tailwind, too.
Both those guys were deep in there, and I thought for a second Herrin got really close to the outside edge of the racetrack, but they were both able to get the bikes slowed down. And you can see Herrin's going to dive right to the inside as they go into turn 4, make that pass on Ty Scott.
And that's the front end feel that Josh Herrin was talking about, having the confidence to be able to do that and to really see what's going on behind him. All the while, you have the number 4 of Josh Hayes. If you think about racecraft, Hayes is known for wanting to lead the race, so it's not like Hayes is hanging back there necessarily. He's the one who really likes to lead.
He's going to be somewhat patient here, though. He's going to let these 2 sort it out already. There's been some shots fired, and we had 1.4 seconds of separation between Josh Herrin when he came across the line to Sam Lockoff in 4th place. So these 3 have made a very, very distinct break. It's a lot different feel of a race than it was yesterday. So expect to see as they come down the hill. There's going to be some fast lap times, I think, set from these 3 riders up at the front right now. And again, it's going to be one of those things for Hayes, I think, where he's got to let the things settle down. Get through these first 4 or 5 laps. Don't lose too much lose too much space. And those guys, and it looks like Liam Grant is down on the Vision Wheel bike. I can't see where that is, Greg, but it could be up in that turn 10 area as the guys are back down into turn 1. This time, Scott wasn't able to do anything with Herrin on the front straightaway, and we've run 27.5 as Scott goes up the inside, so maybe Herrin did get in there just a little bit deep. Now, Greg, when you're on this new tires right off the bat, this is where you can really try to get that separation. Hayes has done a tremendous job holding on to these guys as Herrin again takes another shot up underneath Ty Scott in that turn 4 area.
Unbelievable racing so far, Hannah, with Tyler Scott right there in 2nd spot.
It is, Greg. You know, the most important thing for him this weekend was really to get that fly-by-wire throttle really dialed for this round. They tested it at Barber, and he said, you know, the power of the 750 is a lot different than the 600. For today, they adjusted the rear shock and ride height to smooth it out a bit. He knows the pace is going to be faster today than yesterday. It is a little bit cooler than it was. So overall, throughout the race, just wants to be consciously smooth and consistent, still be aggressive, especially in these opening laps, but he also wants to be patient and keep the bigger picture in mind.
Well, yeah, because it was rear tire yesterday. It really started to spin up late in the race for Ty Scott. And yeah, Jason, the GSXR 600 and GSXR 750 of Suzuki developed at the same time, but the 750 with that extra displacement, more torque, and so the power delivery definitely feels different. So Josh Herrin, who set a 27.581 as the fastest lap of the race last time by, goes 28.5, so a second slower. But here comes Hayes up the inside on the 16-year-old. So there goes Josh Hayes taking his shot early. He may have thought that Herrin might be getting away.
Yeah, but I'm looking just behind these guys. The 44 of Sam Lockoff has started to bridge that gap. He's in the 27s that lap, Greg. Him and Rocco Landers both are the only two riders in the 27. So the 97 back there in 5th place, Rocco Landers recovering nicely after a poor start. But you can see here, Hayes has got himself into second. He wants to take the fight to Herrin and go with him. I think that the two guys at the front have a little bit of pace in that first sector again. Let's see if these GSXR 750s can start to close that gap back, as Ty Scott here has fallen back just a little bit. But Lockoff out of the, this time he gets through that turn 7 nicely. The last lap, Greg, Lockoff came out of turn 7 sideways. While we were getting our report from Hannah there, you could just see back there that Lockoff got a little bit sideways.
Jamie, what do you have on the number 4?
Well, for Josh Hayes, he made that pass today earlier than he was able to start making some passes yesterday. He said it was about lap 5 yesterday when he just said to himself, you know, I have a fifth place bike. Well, then he started to see the guys in front of him fall off a little bit. So that's what he worked on overnight. Was he felt like he was getting worked under braking early on. So they made some changes to the motorcycle. You see he's already more confident as he's fighting for the lead now with Josh Herrin. Watch these two, because Josh Herrin told me, he said, friends are for dinner. It doesn't matter when we're out there on the racetrack.
Yeah, things got a little chippy yesterday between Josh Hayes and Josh Herrin when Herrin made some comments as Hayes goes to the lead now. And these two riders have the same mentality. Neither one of them wants to be in second place. Both want to lead. But Hayes knows that we're going to get to a part of the track where Josh Herrin's going to stick his nose up underneath him. Is Herrin going to have the move? Is Hayes going to leave the door open? But now it's all of a sudden 4 riders as Hayes takes over the spot, and he's holding on to it with Herrin in second.
We know this is the spot that Hayes likes to shine. He likes to put the pressure on the guys and say, he's so good about running consistent laps and hitting his marks, is the number 4. We've seen it year after year. Nothing phases him. It doesn't matter who's around him or behind him. He just worries about getting on with the business at hand for himself. And he has started to adopt that same line through that little S section that we've seen Gagne use so successfully over the weekend. Hayes is also cutting over that concrete patch there out of turn 7. And look at Herrin. Herrin looks like he wants to try to do something with him as they come into turn 10. Hayes is going to lead them down the hill. Watch these straight lines this really nicely. When he was following Herrin down there, you could see a little bit of difference in lines between the two Joshes there.
So Hayes leading the way. Herrin, Yamaha R6 versus Ducati Panigale V2 next generation motorcycle. Let's see what the Ducati's got on the top end. Herrin in the draft of Hayes as they bend it over, get higher in the RPMs. Down the straightaway we go. Herrin under braking. They're side by side. Who's going to have it? It's going to be Herrin, the number 2, who takes over the spot. And then Hayes is going to go up the inside. He loses a little bit of drive. That got dicey for a moment. So it'll be Herrin who holds on to it.
Yeah, Hayes was just on the inside of the track. He was trying to apply that pressure. He had a little bit too much lean angle, so he couldn't get the grip he needed at that much lean angle as they roll now off into that turn 4, 5A. And what it's really allowed is for the other two guys to just put themselves right on the rear wheel of these guys in first and second place. You can see they pull away ever so slightly in that 5A, 5B. As you look at a replay here, Herrin gets in. Josh thinks he's going to cut it back up underneath him, and you can see he's trying to get the power to the ground, Greg, but he's got a lot of movement from that rear and just has that thing sideways coming off of turn number 1.
So Hayes trying to keep it clean in the replay, and Josh Herrin now with a couple of bike lengths on the right part of your screen. So the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York, Josh Herrin on the Panigale V2, having a good run today. Definitely looks more confident on the front.
You see a little bit difference in line there, just coming down that hill. So Hayes likes to just run it much more straight down from there. Doesn't look like there's a really big advantage between either one of them. They just have different lines coming down that area.
A good look at 4th place, the number 44 Sam Lockoff on that Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki GSXR 750. So he and Tyler Scott on those 750s as Hayes in the draft of the Ducati. And a little bit of a gap coming onto the straightaway, and then Hayes goes underneath. So Josh Hayes will take the spot. Quite an entertaining race with 13 laps remaining in this one. It's the 47-year-old Hayes on the Squid Hunter Yamaha R6. Again, Jay, it's just all about these mind games. Here comes Herrin. He loves to lead as well. He'll take the spot. Nowhere for Hayes to go. And it's really allowing these two Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzukis to stay nice and close. If these two stop mucking about, who knows what's going to happen with the gap.
Yeah, those guys are in a good spot right now. They're, if they get the opportunity to be able to draft past and go through, but really, the two guys back there, they're going to be watching, seeing what's happening, conserving maybe even a little bit of tire. These two guys are pushing hard at the front, back into the 27s that time for Herrin, 27.9. So 27 and then low 28s. Rocco Landers actually 28 flat, as well as Diego Perez 28.1. So 5th and 6th are doing the exact same lap times as this lead 4.
Rocco Landers back there right now in 5th place, Jamie.
And it's this mid-race that we're approaching where Rocco Landers wanted to clean up what he did yesterday. He felt like he just kind of got out of the groove a little bit. He didn't push hard enough in the middle, and then what he was forced into was pushing too hard at the end, and he just didn't have it underneath him at that late stage where the track was real greasy. So he's cleaning it up here. We have always seen him do really well at the end of the race. So watch for him to maybe move up, maybe improve his lap times a little bit as we get going.
Well, we've always seen Rocco pretty strong at the end of the races, Greg. And yesterday when you and I were calling this one, we were both looking at each other because Rocco was up front very early. So I expect Rocco to be able to run these lap times as he goes 27.8 that last time through. He was actually the quickest rider of them all. So Rocco Landers on the 97, moving himself forward, hitting his marks. I talked to Hayes a little bit this morning about, obviously he's been coaching Rocco. Then Josh even noticed a couple things that Rocco was doing yesterday, gave him a little bit more advice and some stuff to think about or to work on for this race, and right now it's paying off.
Boy, these two, Herrin and Hayes, are so strong in that section of the racetrack, and they gap a little bit Ty Scott, but he's able to make it up in braking in turn number 7. And the nimble Yamaha R6 through this twisty part of VIR.
Yeah, and we're looking at, and Ty Scott's doing a nice job of keeping them where they need to be. Sam Lockoff, let's just throw a shout out again to him. He's operating at probably about 70% or 60% health-wise. He's got a pretty banged up right leg, Greg, and you've seen him walking around with a boot on.
And a cane.
Didn't help him yesterday having a slide off. And so, he is just fighting hard to stay with these guys, but he's got to be in some pain.
And Jason, I checked in with Sam about that ankle to see how it was doing after yesterday's crash. He said the crash itself didn't really do any more damage. It was running to the bike and trying to pick it back up to get back in the race. He is happy he finished the race in the points. Today, some small changes, but overall, he was feeling so good on the bike yesterday throughout the race. So he really just wants to get into a good rhythm. He's doing well to hang on to the back of this lead pack. Obviously, Sam's crash, and he thinks he'll be in good shape.
Just being able to grit it out. Coming from someone who unfortunately has had some lower leg injuries in the past, I know, especially around here, how much you use your legs and things to change direction on the bike as far as your body position and things like that. So he's going to be going through it. He's got to get through it here so that he can be ready for MotoAmerica. As Herrin now dives up the inside of Hayes.
He moved Hayes out of the way, so Hayes loses. Is he going to lose track position? He doesn't, but he does lose quite a bit of time.
I'm surprised to see Hayes going there as wide as he did there, knowing that he's got somebody right behind him. And normally Josh is really good about that, but he did get out there just a little bit wide and then got pushed out just a little bit as well. But the door was open, and so now we're going to see if the 4 and the 70 can run back down this little tiny gap. Hayes last time through was a 27.5, which was the fastest lap of the race. Rocco Landers did his personal best at a 27.7 to continue that march forward.
It was 27s that allowed Hayes to come back to the group and win this race. But as we come across the stripe, it is 27.519. So fastest lap of the race this deep in the race on lap number 9 for Josh Herrin, and a 28.2 with the miscue from Hayes getting pushed off the racetrack as well.
Yeah, but you watch, these guys are going to be grinding out this middle section of the race is where Hayes has done a lot of hard work over his career. Even when he'd have big leads, he was so good at managing the middle part of the race and just getting those laps under his belt. Right now, he sees that he's got a little bit of adversity as far as he was a half second back when they came across the line that last time. But look what he's done here. He's put a little bit of a gap between him and Ty Scott. Josh has his head down to try to close that gap back in on Herrin. Both of them run 40.8, Greg, in that first split.
Yeah, I just can't say enough of what this Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki team has done. Look at the GSXR 750 right there in the mix. This is a brand new configured motorcycle. It's been around a long time. The team has got tons of data on the GSXR 600, which I'm sure translates slightly. But when you look at this throttle-by-wire system that they just got wiring harnesses for and was able to plug in just one race ago, the fact that Ty Scott and Sam Lockoff are so close to the front this early in the development of this motorcycle says so much about the Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki team.
It does, but right now, two bikes that aren't worried about that is that Ducati and that R6 of Hayes and Herrin, because they started to pull this gap out a little bit over the 750. We're looking at a 27.3 from Josh Hayes that time, fastest lap of the race, trying to close that gap back down. He gained 0.2 that time through.
And this is what I was talking about just a few laps ago, that if these two stop messing around with each other, what is going to happen to those motorcycles behind him? And so far, it's kind of as we thought was going to happen. Just let Herrin lead a little while and see how much Ty Scott has in the tank. There are certain sections, like right now, where he closes up nicely onto the back of them, but when they come out of there, they gap him a little bit.
It's great. If you watch there, you can see Herrin give a little shake of the head. He made a mistake just somewhere off our camera, and he gave a big shake of the head to himself, probably, Greg, because he probably feels like, hey, nobody's come by me in the last couple laps down that front straightaway. Maybe he's opening a gap. He's obviously going to be doing some pit board watching, but he made a small mistake, as you see him now starting to take advantage of straightening the S's out, jumping over that curving. But Hayes is now on the back wheel, and look at Ty Scott. He's not going anywhere, Greg. He's still there. 27.7 for the 16-year-old on that last lap, so he's not that far off if he can just continue to close that gap. But these guys dropping the hammer has dropped Lockoff and Landers back a little bit further.
It's these 27s that changed the pace of the race yesterday, according to Josh Hayes. He said after the morning warm-up, when Josh Herrin was able to consistently throw down some 27s, he said, I'm not worried about it. Obviously, everybody else is going to get better overnight as well, but Josh Herrin was concerned with that. He said yesterday during the race, he tried to consistently put down those laps, and he just couldn't do it. You see him now. That was another 27.7, as best of 27.5, as these two just continue to go back and forth. But the pace of this race is already quicker than what we saw yesterday.
Not only is it quicker from yesterday, as now another lunge from Herrin, who takes over the lead again. That is the 12th change for lead so far in this Supersport race. But Jason, Tyler Scott behind him just went 27.337 to set the fastest lap of the race on lap 11.
Kid is good, man. Kid is good. Robbie Peterson has been on that bike. They said they made some small changes this morning in warm-up. So he is continuing to march forward and learn as he goes. These two guys, boy, Greg, you'd like to say that they're holding each other up, but they're in the 7s consistently again. 7.3, though, for Ty Scott. He's going to be credited with the fastest lap of the race, and he's actually closed that gap down now, where he'll be able to draft these guys down that front straightaway when they come on the straightaway this next time through, if he continues to just maintain this little bit of a gap. You can see those two guys get into turn 10 just a little bit deeper than he does, so they create that gap, then they create a little bit more of a gap here. So that 750 coming down the hill is probably going to be, I don't want to say it's going to be harder to ride, but it's going to be different RPM range coming down the hill as opposed to something that's going to be screaming down the hill on a higher RPMs.
Josh Herrin coming across the stripe will be credited with another lap led on his Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York Panigale V2. And here comes his former teammate Josh Hayes on that Squid Hunter Yamaha R6. He'll take over the spot. And these two have had a long history of racing each other over the years, and they both know each other's tendencies as they both want to lead these races. Herrin's trying to upset the apple cart. He's not wanting to give Josh Hayes his way on the racetrack, and that's why he keeps throwing these shots at Hayes. Ooh, Hayes.
Oh, he lost the front there.
He certainly
Josh
did.
Hayes lost the front, and if you watch, he loses the front, picks the throttle up, and actually straightened the bike up, it looked like to me there. So we'll definitely be asking him about that afterwards. This is the lap prior after Hayes had taken the lead. He went into turn 3. Herrin went underneath him a lap ago. This time when they went through there, Hayes closed that door. Now, look what happens. Yeah, this was him losing the front here, Greg. He loses the front ever so slightly, and it looked like he just picked the throttle up, and it kind of straightened the motorcycle up.
So good heads-up reactionary time from Josh Hayes. Laps are winding down, Jason. Scheduled for 19. We have about 6.5 to go. And Ty Scott, after making that massive push, 27.337.
Lost some time, hasn't he? I'm looking on the board, Greg. It all happened in that first sector. Look, you see he's almost a half second down. Well, he was over a half second down to Hayes in that first split. So that was the difference for Ty Scott. Let's see if he can put his head down, mount another charge towards these two guys leading the race.
Herrin in the draft will take over the lead once again into turn number 1.
Hayes trying to sneak it back up the inside, and he's going to as Herrin gets in past him. Neither one of these guys want to give a quarter to anybody, and Herrin stuffs it back up the inside as they go into turn 3.
This really speaks to the confidence Josh Herrin has in the front end of the motorcycle. The changes that his Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York team made overnight, and Herrin is feeling confident. He was thinking about this exact scenario as well as the scenario possibility of a checkout and how he's going to handle it. I think that Josh Herrin, when I spoke to him this morning, was thinking it might be more people up front. Now it's really down to these two for the moment, as Ty Scott's going to have to make another big push and close the gap. But now the question is, wait a second, has Josh Herrin finally broken the will of Hayes, as Hayes knows maybe that front end, that little bit that he had, Jason, maybe that's the sign for Josh Hayes, but he closes it right back up in turn 10 under the brakes. Hannah, what do you got?
Well, guys, between these front 3 riders, we've got 6 championships combined, 4 Superbike championships for Hayes. We've got a championship for Herrin and Tyler Scott as well. And I think it's really interesting perspective, kind of the juxtaposition in age. You know, both Hayes and Herrin have so much more experience. And when I was talking to Herrin yesterday, he said, I've been racing motorcycles longer than Tyler's has been alive at just 16 years old. So, you know, it speaks to the level of riding that we're seeing here. The next generation of Supersport is also bringing about the next generation of riders.
Thanks, Hannah. Yeah, Greg, what do you see up ahead of these guys?
Lap traffic.
Yeah, who's going to want to get there first? That's the big thing. As you can see, one of the back markers has already got the blue flags pulled over to the side. Look at Ty Scott. He's still so gritty, Greg. 27.8 that time from the 16-year-old who Hannah was just talking about. He is still trying to get himself into that position to get on the back of these two guys again. He knows any engagement between these two is going to be an opportunity for him. So we got to keep our eyes peeled up the road. We got 4.5 laps to go. Any back markers, any lap traffic that we start to entail or see, we know both of these guys are going to want to get to those people first. So Ty Scott, though, is still there. G-Dub, what is he? He got it down to under a second again that last lap by. So he's recovered nicely from the mistake he made in the first sector a lap ago.
Boy, Jay, that section right there, turn 10, 11, it just looks like the R6 of Josh Hayes has just got tightier lines. Like he makes left effort. Yeah, Josh Herrin's got to turn that bike a lot more. Onto the front straightaway we go. Yeah, look at lock off there.
There's going to be somebody that they're definitely going to grab on this lap. There's probably going to be in the turn 3, turn 4 area. But, you know, now I'm kind of wondering about Hayes. He hasn't taken a shot that lap. He could have. He hasn't wanted to. Leo,
there it is
right there.
Up the
just
inside.
As I said, it was made a little bit easy for him there.
I think it's because of that strategy. Josh wants to hit lap traffic first. He wants to dictate the pace. He has confidence in himself of being able to judge what these riders are going to be doing.
Oh, man, and poor Ty Scott. He's going to get that person in the wrong spot right now. Ty's going to be able to go up underneath there as to get back. Look at Rocco Landers and Lockoff still back there in 4th and 5th, doing their best to try to hold on. See how Josh Hayes goes over to the left like that there, and Herrin actually straight lines that a little bit more.
Boy, after the post-race interview from Josh Herrin, talking about how he'd like to be happy for Josh Hayes for his win, but wasn't happy for that win. Josh Hayes heard those comments, was not happy about it. You just kind of put your heart in your throat these last couple laps. Because even though Josh Hayes isn't full-time in this Supersport championship, he'd like nothing more than to deny Josh Herrin another victory this season.
And Herrin the same, you know, and that's the thing is it's, you know, those words that were spoke yesterday out of Herrin right after the race, I know it didn't go over too well, but the fact is that he's come back to do what he needs to do. He takes a peek over his shoulder to see that there's really nobody else back there. And look, Greg, he's sat up. So he now wants to play that waiting game, it looks like, to try to do something maybe with Josh on the last lap. Let's see if he goes through him here. He does. He goes by.
That was incredible. I thought he wasn't going to be able to do that because he did sit up and have a little bit of air in the leathers to cool himself down possibly. But another great pass by Josh Herrin. And this is exactly why Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York wanted to hire Josh Herrin. At the end of the day, all Herrin cares about is racing. He wants to go to the front and he wants to win. And when you look at two classic racers in MotoAmerica competition, these two have done it, Jason, and so far it's been very clean.
Oh, yeah, no, it has been. It's been really, really nice as far as that goes. And we've seen them. I know you're keeping a tally there. It looks like you're up to about 18. So we've seen 18 passes for the lead so far. And we still have 2.5 laps to go. And it really does come down to who wants to lead into turn 1 and either take a chance to lead out of that last corner. I know Josh Hayes pretty well, and that's probably what he wants to do. He's not going to be afraid to lead the last lap. So then it'll just be up to, like, where will Herrin maybe want to try to make his pass. I think Herrin can pass Josh.
Fastest Sector 2 time, a 27 flat with only 2 laps left to go. Herrin comes across the line, a 27.390, his best time of the race. Boy, these Dunlop tires are holding up to perfection on his Ducati Panigale V2. So Josh Herrin, he's trying to go, but Josh Hayes hanging right there.
Yeah, he's right there with him. And now the race strategies are starting to get to the point where who's going to get frantic? Is anybody going to get frantic and make any kind of little small mistakes? Jamie?
Well, for Josh Herrin, one of his takeaways from yesterday was that he has not been working out as much as he needs to. And in these last couple of laps, he knew that if he was at the front, he was going to be pretty beat by the end of it. So he saved up some of his energy. He got a massage this morning, and he's trying to take better care of himself physically. He said these summer months, so I'm going to have to get back to the gym. He's going to have to get back on it. But watch these last 2 laps because it is hot, and this is a very physical race.
Yeah, and then this is where the adrenaline kicks in too, you know? I mean, it's the one thing, Jay, is, as you know, as a racer yourself, when you're racing and battling someone like this, you look up and you go, wait a second, there's only 2 laps to go. It's when you're on your own like Tyler Scott is in 3rd place where you start to feel the heat and you start to feel the energy level start to drop. But these two, they're at their peak right now.
Yeah, right now their mental as well has got to be strong. Now this is gonna tell you a lot. If Hayes goes up underneath Herrin down into turn 1, I feel that Hayes, that's his way of saying I can't get by him before start finish line. So he's gonna have to do something. And Herrin looks like he's gonna be on the inside of the track. And look what he does there. He protects it. Hayes had nowhere to go there, so he's gonna have to try to do it somewhere else. As Herrin does a nice job of protecting his line down into there. So now it's gonna be really interesting. The next spot for Josh Hayes is going to be on the run down to turn 7. Turn 1 was thwarted there by Herrin, so it's about running this next little section clean and then trying to do something on the run to turn 7. But Herrin's got his head down right now, Greg. How about a 27.2 that last time by this man, number 4, Josh Hayes. But now he's running out of opportunities. The next run after turn 7 will be running along the ridge line to turn 10. He's not going to do it here.
Josh Herrin digging deep, one of the most talented motorcycle racers we've ever seen in MotoAmerica competition. Josh Herrin, he is wringing the neck of that Ducati V2, and Josh Hayes is answering, but it's those couple bike lengths that could make the big difference on the run to the checkered flag on this final lap.
Hayes just isn't quite close enough, and Herrin's going to do a nice job of blocking that anyway. So now it's the run down the hill. Hayes has got to try to get as close as he can. Look, he wants to go down the inside almost there, but that straight line that Hayes uses isn't still straight enough to be able to get past that number 2. Now let's see who's got the horsepower.
Here we go, onto the front straightaway. Josh Hayes, half a bike length the distance. He's in the draft of the Ducati. Josh Herrin trying to hold on. The Ducati doesn't have the legs. They come across the stripe, and it's going to be Josh Herrin by 32 thousandths of a second. After 18 lead changes, Herrin's able to hold on to it from pole to victory. What a ride for Josh Herrin. And the changes that his Ducati team made overnight, they were able to pull it off. Josh Hayes, what a run for him. Comes up just short, 0.032 of a second. Tyler Scott in 3rd over Sam Lockoff. Rocco Landers in 5th. Kevin Olmedo in 6th spot over Benjamin Smith. Jubilation for the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York team. The effort from the crew. And Josh Herrin, who whips that front wheel in the air. And look at that race pace, Jason.
Amazing. And to think that they went that fast at the end as well. 27.358 on the last lap for Herrin. His quickest lap of the race, 27.352. Shout out to Tyler Scott. a tremendous weekend for him. Finds himself on the podium twice on that Vision Wheel GSX-R 750. So Lockoff was fourth. Rocco Landers rounded out the top 5, as you can see here. I didn't think that Hayes quite had it underneath him to be able to draft past that Ducati by the point of where the finish line was going to be. That's why he was going down the inside, but of turn 1 for most of the other laps. But Herrin showed some racecraft there at the end, G-Dub, and he was able to keep the bike tight down into turn 1 and not allow Hayes to go up underneath him.
Tell you what, Josh Herrin dug deep. I mean, you could tell from the body language change, the way he was grabbing the brakes and the throttle, the movement from the Ducati on that final lap. He just was not going to be denied. And I think that Herrin had enough confidence coming onto the front straightaway, leading this race, that he knew Hayes could not get by him.
Yeah, no question. I totally agree with you on that.
I mean, how many people want to get on to MotoAmerica's social media right now and let everyone know that you want Josh Hayes to continue on? All right, when we return, we're going to hear from Herrin about his masterful race performance.
Robbie Floyd, Roger Hayden here with you in the break. We got it over from the guys. That was a great race. I mean, that was a battle of the Joshes we expected to see it. It came down to the very end. And I think Hayes, he wanted to make a pass before it came down to that straight, but there was a chance he could do it on the front straight, but it wasn't no getting by that Ducati.
No, it was close. It looks like those guys are faster where the Ducati is toward the end of the straightaway when they get past the start-finish line.
Right.
And they really pull up beside him. But Josh Herrin ran his best lap of the race, that last lap, so it definitely made it hard for Josh to get close enough to throw a shot at him. And you know, I told you before the race that Josh Herrin was going to be a different guy today. His pace was going to be a lot faster. He was going to be aggressive, and today he took those shots, and you know, he kind of refused to lose. What worried me was he was having trouble getting it stopped into turn 1.
Right.
And I thought that last lap he got in really deep, and I didn't know, you know, if he was going to be able to get it stopped. But
and he did.
He did.
Yeah, he did really well there. And you could tell that seemed like it was a little problem. And I think that cost Hayes. He was ready to go underneath him, and when he couldn't, that kind of slowed him down, because the same area, what is that, going over 2, 3, 4, where we saw Josh Herrin keep making pass after pass on everybody in that area. Josh Hayes wasn't close enough to even do that last lap. And when he wasn't able to do it there, you knew a guarding 7, a guarding 10, and then it came down to a drag race.
And I don't think he was close enough because he did his best lap, that last lap at 27.3. So that's what he had to do. I mean, look at Josh Hayes, that last lap. His second sector was the fastest
overall
of the whole race, the last lap in that second sector. And that's also hats off to Dunlop.
Yeah.
I mean, in this his tires lasting that long.
During the race, he
and look,
tried to
here's shutting it down into that first turn.
Couldn't do it. You see him now. That was another 27.
And there's the underneath move that we saw. Yeah, the Ducati can be fast, but if you can't shut it down, it doesn't make a difference.
And they just went back and forth and just drafting each other. Both of them wanted to lead. Both riders' strategy was to lead, and you know, Josh led out that last corner. Josh Herrin got a good run and held him off to the line.
You know, in some of these classes, you see a guy that can wait back behind and get in that tail race, in that wake, you know, and try and close up. That Ducati was still pulling, and like you said, it looked like the Ducati's a little faster towards the end, and the Yamaha just wasn't able to do it. One thing we did see, though, in a straight line and in a draft, that GSX-R 750 is fast. It looks faster.
It does. It's definitely got some legs, especially once they get past that kink. Tyler Scott would make up a lot of ground. And he rode a great race today. He should be happy with that. 2 podiums this weekend. No telling how much he learned.
Yes.
And the pace was hotter today. And I think that toward the end, why he kind of fell off toward the end, and he'll figure that out as he goes, that these guys don't slow down.
And a similar program, you're exactly right, a similar program like we saw from Shondale and Kelly. Keep learning, keep learning. The wins will come. You keep doing what you're doing, young man. You'll get your shot. Let's send it back to the guys next door.
Back at Virginia International Raceway after a stellar Supersport race. Josh Herrin on top by 0.032 seconds over Josh Hayes. Tyler Scott 4.5 seconds back. Man, he put on a huge push in the middle of the race, tried to close that gap, but just couldn't maintain it at the end. Sam Lockoff injured, but still a great 4th place finish with Rocco Landers in 5th. So let's get right down to Hannah, who's with our winner, Josh Herrin.
Josh Herrin back on the top of the podium here this season. Josh Hayes was keeping you honest throughout that race. How do you really balance risk versus reward in those final laps, knowing that he's right on your tail?
Oh, I was all out on that one. He's beat me beat my ass my entire career, and so I wanted to just race with him. You know, I feel like a lot of the wins that I got against him were because he made mistakes, you know, jumping the line and stuff like that, and I've lived with that my whole life, no matter how much people tell me. That's probably why I was kind of an asshole when I came in yesterday. That guy's, he helped me a lot last year. He really made it to where I felt like quitting a lot of times, and he made me feel better. And he's an awesome guy for our sport. I was not nice yesterday, and yeah, so good race for him. Thank you so much to my team. I got to give a special shout out to Cato Fasteners for helping us this year. It means a lot. Thank you to the fans for sticking out here in the heat, and yeah, looking forward to the next race.
Congrats, Josh. Let's get over to Jamie with our second place finisher. There were 18 lead changes between these two riders, Josh Herrin and Josh Hayes, for the race today. You ultimately ended up second. There was a moment with 7 laps to go where it looked like the front end got away from you. What impact did that have on the end of the race?
I don't think it had any. It was a good pace, you know what I mean? We did 27.3 at the end of the race. It was hot, it was greasy, and it was a ton of fun. I love racing, and I'm glad it was a clean race. And man, I'm thankful for every lap I get to do out there. Thank you to Squid Hunter. Dunlop Hollins and these guys are giving me a bike that can win. I had it. I came up a little short today. Josh rode a good race, did everything he had to do at the right time, and but what a barn burner. I hope it was fun to watch.
Oh, it's definitely fun to watch today and yesterday. You've said all weekend you don't know what the rest of the season holds, how many times we're going to see you out. Do you have any updates on that? When will we see you again?
No, I don't know, but I think the team's having a good time. I think they like being up here, so maybe I can convince them to do a few more.
It was a solid weekend for Josh Hayes. Congratulations. Let's get to Hannah.
Third place today goes to Tyler Scott, his second podium of the weekend. Tyler, what were you able to utilize, if anything, from yesterday's race that helped you in today's race stick with that lead group for as long as you did?
Yeah, the Vision Wheel M4 XR Suzuki felt great all race, and we made a few changes overnight, and they helped definitely, but the pace was up, and I kind of lost the group pack. And also a big thank you to Robbie Peterson, Cole, the whole team, John and Chris Ulrich. Everyone, it was a big help, and it was a great weekend.
You look like you're really comfortable out there, but obviously there's still some progress to be made by you and the team as far as the 750 goes. What work needs to be done between now and the next round?
I think I just need to work on my riding a little bit, but the bike felt outstanding all weekend. Big thanks to those guys.
Congrats to Tyler Scott, guys.
Well, that's honesty there. I mean, he's a young man, Greg, and he's just going to continue to get that experience and get better as he goes. And, I mean, look, he's on the podium. Is that the third time this year? I think we've seen him on the podium, so he's done a tremendous job. And that team will continue to keep making him more comfortable, and having Robbie Peterson in your corner is always a good thing.
And for Josh Herrin, you know, if you look at the way the point standings were, he extends his lead because Josh Hayes isn't in this championship, so he puts some more daylight between himself and Rocco Landers, who finished 5th, as well as Sam Lockoff, who was 3rd in points coming in, and he's going to be 4th. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to show you those point standings and have more coverage from VIR Supersport Race 2.
So Roger and Robbie back here with you, and some of the things we heard there out of Josh, kind of saying he was sorry for the way he was acting. You know, he was disappointed with Josh Herrin, that is, with his finish yesterday, but coming back with redemption today. It was good to hear that out of him, especially knowing that they were working together last year, and he kind of felt it. But you kind of get caught up in that moment. Did you ever say anything that you wish you could have taken back on the podium?
Yeah, before. Yeah, there's definitely sometimes you get caught up. Actually, with Josh Herrin one time here.
Tell me, how did it go down?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to get back into it. But you know, it's racing, and I like seeing that out of somebody. You know, I mean,
yes.
You can't do it all the time, but I like seeing that passion that Josh Herrin has, and you know, it's also cool that he owned it and came back and apologized today. But you know what? When you win, it cures a lot. So you know, if he got second today, I'm not sure, you know, if it been the same. But he rode a great race. His lap times were super consistent. Even when he was leading, he was in the 27s pushing, and you know, he wanted to lead. He wanted to put the laps in, and he did it. He rode great. Josh Hayes rode great too, kept him honest that whole race. Just couldn't get close enough on that last lap to throw a shot.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Supersport of old. And old isn't that long ago. It was just last year. This was that same Sean Dillon Kelly, Rich Escalante feel. It was that Bobby Fong Escalante and SDK feel we had the year before. I mean, I really, really hope Josh Hayes stays in there. And I'm not saying that you won't see that out of Sam Lockoff and Ty Scott too, but it's more fun with Hayes in the mix.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that was a great race today. Those two went back at it, back and forth, and it would be cool to see Josh out there. And not only just because he's so competitive but fast, but you know, these young kids are going to be able to learn so much from him. You know, talk about Tyler Scott, Sam Lockoff, Rocco Landers, those guys getting out there with Josh Hayes and seeing how he, not only how he rides, but seeing what he does in practice, how he approaches it, how he puts a lot of laps in, how he just worries about the race, and I think people can learn from that.
You do see that breeze blowing out there. The weather is holding off as it is now. It's a little toasty. I haven't done my weather update. I'm sure they know it's plenty warm. Again, at 9:20 this morning, I show my phone said 73. It's 86 degrees now. Yesterday, it was like 92, 93 at this time. So it almost feels like air conditioning.
Well, where we're at is about 69, 70, right?
Yes, I'd say 67, 68 in the booth. The Medallia Superbike's coming up here in just a bit. As far as Supersport now, we get ready also to head to Road America, another good track, a fun track. If you happen to be in the area and watch it on MotoAmerica Live Plus, you need to go ahead and get tickets. It was our first one back for when we had the coronavirus issues and stuff, and the crowd still turned out. So again, Road America is our next race. Go to MotoAmerica.com. You can find out more. To close out our show, let's go over to the guys next door.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is sponsored by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
Welcome back to Virginia International Raceway as our Supersport Race 2 coverage continues after Josh Herrin was able to take a great victory. Sam Lockoff was in 4th place in this one. He's with Jamie.
And for Sam, you talked about it. He was racing at about 70% in terms of your physical capabilities. The end of this race, I know you're hurting. What is your biggest takeaway?
Just some more data. I'm extremely happy about the work Jeremy's putting in. I want to thank Vision Wheel M4 XR Suzuki because you know, I'm hurting real bad from the crash yesterday, but that wasn't the ultimate reason I finished 4th. I was just struggling a little bit with everything. I was struggling a little bit on the brakes, a little bit of the drive grip, but yeah, you know, Jeremy's here to help me win some races, and I'm extremely happy. So.
We've talked about this 750 and the fact that this is only now the 4th race that you've been able to race with it. Compared to Road Atlanta, when it first came out to now, how much more along are you guys in the development process?
You know, I think we're nearly there. In Atlanta, we definitely struggled with electronics, but we're definitely there now. So just gonna fine-tune it just a little, and you know, we're gonna come swinging in Road America.
And hopefully you're feeling better at Road America as well. It's a very long track. We're expecting some more heat. Thank you for the time today, Sam.
Yeah, and Road America really, Jay, is just about 2 weeks away. So more recovery time for Sam Lockoff. And you know what? The big thing is that Jamie mentioned, you know, 4 races, but the reality is it's only really 3.5 races, really. So, but a lot of data gathered by this team, and that's massively beneficial because now Sam Lockoff's not the only one on the GSXR 750.
That's right. I was going to say having 3 riders in that tent on that bike is going to be good. And it's a classy interview by Sam. I mean, he's going to play it off a little bit like it wasn't all him. He had issues with the bike as well. But the thing is that when you're operating at the deficiency health-wise that he is right now, and if you saw him here walking around, you know he's hurting pretty bad. He's going to get recovered. He'll be better at Road America. And I still think that guy's going to have a lot of wins under his belt this year.
He certainly will. And Jay, let's talk about 18 lead changes in Supersport. I mean, pretty incredible race that we were able to see, wasn't it?
Yeah, you wouldn't even think that there would be that many at the start of the race. You know, the race yesterday was so much different than the race today. The pace today was incredible. The lap times that these guys did at the end of the race, going down into the low 27s. You heard Josh Hayes talking about it. You know, this could be any one of a number of laps. We saw Herrin go up underneath Hayes. Hayes turn it back up underneath him. You can see the bike getting all squirrely on the edge of the tire. Thought there was plenty of room there given between those 2 riders. You can see at this stage, obviously, both Vision Wheel bikes are in in that background. Then Herron takes a shot up underneath Hayes into turn 7. And just kind of threw Hayes off a little bit, but Hayes a few laps later was back up the inside of Herron. And then Herron was charging back up underneath him into turn 3 area. And this was a routine that we've seen from Herron over the years. You know, if you pass him, you got to know that he's going to fire back at you. And he was doing that today, and he did a nice job of it. And again, you see these guys going back and forth, and you're going to see Herron not give up that position when they get to the apex here of turn 3. It's a really tricky area and narrow, but at the end, Herron was able to hold Hayes off at the line. Hayes just didn't quite have the horsepower at that particular point of the track to get back past that Ducati.
I just keep thinking about the confidence in the front end that your championship points leader had today. And look at this, Jason, 31 points adrift so early in this season. Sam Lockoff is really going to have to heal up nice. They're going to get that GSXR 750 dialed in, and he's going to have to start throwing some shots on here. Rocco Landers doing a great job. He and his privateer team, Landers Racing, doing that in 3rd so far in this championship, as Tyler Scott starts to march his way up. Now, Josh Hayes is sitting there in 5th place, but the question is, what's he going to be able to do? Is he going to stick around? Is the team going to stick around for any more races, or is this it for Josh Hayes? If it is, Jason, how do you feel about Josh Hayes' performance?
It won't be. It won't be. Can't keep him away. He's going to want to be here. He sounds like he's got a good crew of guys down there helping him out. Obviously, Melissa's probably involved in that a little bit, but he works hard. He loves still riding, and that's the main thing about it. And, you know, we talk about age and things like that. It's experience, you know, and you look at somebody like Jeremy McWilliams. He won at Daytona at 57 years old on a bagger of all things, and that guy's ridden everything. So, hey, maybe this is just the start for Hayes. We don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
But those 18 lead changes are something we're going to be talking about for many years to come here at Supersport race number 2 from VIR. So, Jason, as we look forward to our next race, let's just take Josh Hayes out of the equation because we don't know if he's going to be at Road America or not. What do you see when we get to the nice long straightaways that Road America has to offer? Well,
I think so far we've seen a nice balance in our rules package here in Supersport. There was a lot of things being discussed about that. Now we've got an R6 that's won, we've got a Ducati that's won, and we've seen a GSXR 750 that's capable of winning. So I think that when we get to Road America with those big long straights, we're going to be able to see who can stay in that draft. I want to see a healthy Sam Lockoff, and you know, if Hayes comes back, I don't know if he'll be back there, but if he does, it'll be interesting to see the R6s of Rocco Landers and Benjamin Smith and Kevin Almeida, see if they can take to that front with those other groups.
And we are in the next generation of motorcycles in Supersport, so MotoAmerica is going to look at their data, and they're going to give their data to the World Supersport folks. They're going to crunch it and see if we have any changes to be made for next time for any of these next generation motorcycles at Road America. Well, that was certainly an entertaining race, and we certainly hope you join us when we resume race action in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. For Hannah Lopa, Jamie Howe, and Jason Pridmore, I'm Greg White. Thanks so much for checking out Supersport Race 2 from VIR.